Captain James Reed stood in the observation deck of the diplomatic station, watching the stars drift past in silence. His uniform bore the insignia of Earth's Colonial Defense Force, though tonight he wore it more as formality than function. The reception hall behind him buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from a dozen species mingled, their conversations hushed and careful. He'd noticed her immediately when she entered. Not because of her height, though she towered over most beings present at nearly 7 feet. Not because of her crystalline skin that refracted the ambient light into pale violet patterns. He noticed her because everyone else had stopped talking the moment she appeared. The crowd parted like water around a stone. Conversations died mid-sentence. Several delegates found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. Within moments, a sphere of empty space surrounded her, as if an invisible barrier held everyone at bay. James watched this display with growing curiosity. The woman he assumed the designation fit moved with fluid grace toward the refreshment area, her movements economical and precise. She selected a drink, turned, and found herself facing another empty circle of floor. He picked up 2 glasses from a nearby table and walked across the polished deck toward her. The room seemed to hold its breath. "You look like you could use better company than your own thoughts," James said, offering one of the glasses. "Unless I'm interrupting something." Up close, her features were striking. Sharp angles softened by an almost luminescent quality to her skin. Her eyes were solid black, like polished obsidian, and when they fixed on him, he felt the weight of ancient things behind that gaze. She stared at him for a long moment. Around them, the ambient noise of the reception remained conspicuously absent. "You should leave," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested it came from somewhere other than vocal cords. "Before you understand what you're doing." "I understand I'm offering a drink to someone who seems to be having a worse evening than I am," James replied. "Unless there's some protocol I'm violating." "Protocol," she repeated, and something that might have been amusement flickered across her features. "No, not protocol." She took the offered glass, her fingers brushing his for the briefest moment. They were cool, like smooth stone warmed by winter sun. "I am Vara of the 9th Legion." "Do you know what that means, human?" "Should I?" "Everyone else here does." James glanced around the room. Indeed, every eye that wasn't actively looking away was fixed on their interaction, with expressions ranging from horror to morbid fascination. "I'm from Earth," he said. "We're new to this whole galactic community thing. Still learning which forks to use at dinner, so to speak." Vara's head tilted in a gesture that seemed universal across species. "Earth, yes. The species that looked at the stars and decided they belonged there, despite lacking the capability to reach them. The species that saw an impossible challenge and took it as an invitation." "That's us," James agreed. "Stubborn to a fault." "The 9th Legion served the Vac Imperium," Vara said, her tone carrying the weight of confession. "For 300 cycles, we were their instrument of absolute enforcement. We did not negotiate. We did not compromise. We ended resistance before it could begin." She watched his face as she spoke, clearly expecting something. Fear, perhaps. Recognition of danger. But James simply listened. "When the Imperium fell, the galaxy celebrated," she continued. "And then they remembered we still existed. The 9th Legion became the thing parents warned their children about. The monsters in the dark. We are tolerated because no one has the capability to eliminate us without catastrophic cost. But we are not welcome." "That sounds lonely," James said. The observation seemed to genuinely surprise her. Her solid black eyes widened slightly. "You know what I am? What I've done. What I could do. And you respond with sympathy?" "I respond with what I observe," James corrected. "You're standing alone at a party where everyone's terrified of you." "Yeah, that sounds lonely." Vara was quiet for a moment, processing this. Around them, the reception continued its careful pretense of normalcy, though James could feel the attention focused their way. "Are you not afraid?" she asked. The question carried genuine curiosity rather than threat. "Of what? You having a conversation with me?" James sipped his drink. "I've been afraid before. Real fear. The kind where your hands shake and your mouth goes dry and every instinct screams at you to run. This isn't that. Perhaps you don't understand what I am capable of." "Maybe not the specifics," he admitted, "but I can extrapolate. You were part of a military force that kept an empire in line through intimidation and overwhelming response. You're probably trained in ways to kill that I can't even imagine. You could likely end this conversation permanently before I realized you'd moved." He took another sip. "Am I close?" "Remarkably," Vara said softly. "And yet here you are, making small talk with a junior captain from a species that barely understands jump drive mechanics. If you wanted to hurt me, I'd already be hurt. Since I'm not, I'm going to operate on the assumption that you came here tonight for the same reason everyone else did. To be social. To connect with other beings. To maybe have one conversation that doesn't revolve around war or politics or territorial boundaries." For several heartbeats, Vara simply stared at him. Then something remarkable happened. The rigid posture that had defined her stance since entering the room softened marginally. Not much. Just enough to suggest the armor had found a crack. "You are strange," she said. "I'm hearing that a lot since we joined the galactic community. Why aren't you afraid of me?" The question came out quieter this time, almost vulnerable. James considered it carefully. Around them, the crowd had begun to resume their conversations, though many still watched from the corners of their eyes. "My first deployment," he said, "I served under Commander Rita Kowalski. She was 5 feet tall and looked like someone's grandmother. She knitted sweaters for her grandchildren. Made the best apple pie in 3 sectors." He smiled at the memory. "She was also the most dangerous person I've ever met. Won 2 medals of honor. Once held a position against an entire enemy battalion for 6 hours until reinforcements arrived. Lost her entire squad, but saved a colony of 40,000. And this relates how? People assumed she was harmless because she looked harmless. They assumed she was safe because she smiled and offered them pie. But she was a coiled spring. Always ready. Always capable." James met Vara's obsidian gaze directly. "She taught me that what someone can do and what someone will do are different things, and that the most dangerous people are often the ones who've seen enough violence to know when it's actually necessary." Vara's expression shifted in ways he couldn't quite read. "You compare me to your mentor. I compare you to someone who scared the hell out of enemies and inspired absolute loyalty in allies. Someone who could have used her capability to dominate, but chose not to. Someone who understood that true strength isn't about making others fear you. You know nothing about my choices." "No," James agreed. "But I know you're here, at a diplomatic reception, making conversation instead of making threats. That tells me something about the choices you're making now." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Not the uncomfortable silence of the crowd's fear, but something different. Something that felt almost like understanding. "The 9th Legion is disbanded," Vara said finally. "Has been for 20 cycles. Those of us who remain are scattered, trying to find purpose in a galaxy that sees us as relics of a brutal age. Most of my kind have isolated themselves, chosen solitude over integration. But not you." "Not me," she confirmed, "though I question the wisdom of that choice when I attend functions like this." "Maybe you're attending the wrong functions," James suggested. "Earth's delegation is having a gathering next week. Much smaller, much less formal. We're trying to build relationships with other species, learn the cultural ins and outs. Could use perspectives from someone who's actually lived through galactic history instead of just reading about it. Vara's head tilted again. You're inviting me to a human social gathering. I'm inviting a person who seems isolated to meet other people who are also trying to figure out where they fit in this big, complicated universe. The fact that your Ninth Legion is background, not definition. Your species is truly bizarre. We've been told that too. James grinned. So is that a yes? For the first time since entering the reception, something that could only be called a smile crossed Vara's crystalline features. It transformed her face, softening the angles and adding warmth to the refracted light. Yes, she said, though I suspect your superiors will have concerns. My superiors sent me to make diplomatic connections. This counts. You're either very clever or very foolish, Captain James Reed. Probably some of both, he admitted. That seems to be the human way. As the evening continued, others in the room noticed something remarkable. The sphere of isolation around Vara had shrunk. Not vanished fear and reputation. Didn't disappear overnight, but reduced to. Include a human captain who seemed entirely comfortable in proximity to one of the galaxy's most feared warriors. And when the reception ended, when delegates filed out to their respective quarters and ships, those who witnessed it would carry a story. Not of the Ninth Legion's terror, not of humanity's foolishness, but of the night a human chose connection over fear, and